The Chargers finally fire Brandon Staley. Welcome to Football Talk with Hawk. Appreciate you stopping by and listening, whether on Spotify now at Football Talk with Hawk or on YouTube. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Thank you so much. We are trying to get the podcast out there, trying to grow it a little bit, and we're going to see what we can do. But guys, we have got an interesting slate of games this week. This is the Week 15 pick video. And for those of you that are new to the channel, this is how it's going to work. I have Hawks pick 6. Now, each week, I will automatically pick the Colts game. No matter what, I will automatically pick the Colts game. All the odds that I run through are the current odds as of Saturday morning by FanDuel. That is the app that I use to be able to get the odds, the spreads, and what else may be available and there. We're going to go over some fantasy stuff today, injury news, stuff like that. So let's get started. Here is Football Talk with Hawk. Okay, guys, let's open this up. Number 1, Brandon Staley gets fired from the Los Angeles Chargers. And honestly, the bigger surprise is that Tom Telesco gets released as well. Now, here's something that needs to be addressed. The common thought is that GMs do a lot of the hiring of the coaches. That is true in some organizations. That is not true in a lot of others. Tom Telesco did not want Brandon Staley as the head coach of the Chargers. He wanted Brian Daboll or Jim Harbaugh. And the Spanos family was too cheap and didn't value their franchise that they own enough to spend the money on either one of those two coaches. And now they have wasted a beautifully built roster. And on paper, a top 5 talented team. Any head coach coming in would be thrilled to take over this roster. Any GM would be thrilled to come in and really only have to build around Justin Herbert. Now, the task is going to be harder. The cap hit's about to come. The free years, quote unquote, of Justin Herbert's rookie contract are up. Now you're going to be spending the money. Now you're going to be short some of your star players. That means they need a coach. They need a polarizing coach in LA. I've said this before. I don't want to belabor this point. The Chargers, the Spanos family, need to make a big splash. Go big. Go all out. Go get somebody. Try to get somebody that can help make this franchise relevant to both the fans, but really to the NFL. Make them relevant in the NFL. Get the respect back within the owners, within the organizations, within that 32-team group of the National Football League. That's what they need. All right, Tom Telesco. Let's talk about what he did real fast because this shocked me. This absolutely shocked me. The guy built a Super Bowl caliber team. Yes, I said it. He built a Super Bowl caliber roster. And Brandon Staley wasted it. And somehow Telesco is fired. And he will get a job really quickly. Do not mistake this. Do not mistake this. Any owner is going to be really happy to have a guy like Tom Telesco come in and build them a roster the way that he did with the Chargers. I don't think the draft picks were a bust. I think he's hit on quite a few. I believe the coaching and the development was not there for him to get nearly as much credit that he deserves. As much credit as he deserves for what he did. So let's run down real fast, take a couple minutes here. So let's run down exactly what we think will happen still. That now I believe we're waiting unless something really happens. We're waiting until the end of week 18 to figure out the rest of the open positions. But right now you have Carolina for sure, the Chargers for sure, and the Raiders, I believe, is not open. I believe Antonio Pierce will get the job. If Mark Davis is smart, he'll sign him to a 3-year deal. Say, show me what you got. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we move on. Saves himself some money from the buyouts from John Gruden, from Josh McDaniels. Gives him a couple years to recoup some money. See what you can build with Antonio Pierce. See what he does. See what type of staff he builds. If it works, great. If it doesn't, they can move on. But Antonio Pierce has, I don't want to say he's done good enough to deserve an interview. That's not what I want to say. Because he's done more than enough to get an interview. The feeling in that building, you can tell with Max Crosby, Devontae Adams. You can tell. They know they just got to get through this year now. It's been a disappointing year. Everybody will agree with that. But they know we got to get through this year. They just put up 63 points at home, Thursday night football in front of national TV audience, and they feel pretty good about themselves. They know they're not just losers. They've won some games. They know they can compete. They're missing some pieces, and I think Pierce deserves the opportunity to fill those pieces, give him a 3-year contract, and say, we'll see what happens. Show me what you got. All right, so now let's move on to where the other spots will be. We've got 3. Guys, we have 3 coaches fired in season already. That's a lot. The pressure to win is mounting. I'm going to take a little bit off of what Colin said. I've talked to him about it with a couple of my friends, a couple of my buddies. We were talking about the coaching carousel, and I said, you know, a couple years ago before Cliff Kingsbury got hired for Arizona, I thought the 1 year was wrong. I don't like 1-year guys getting fired. I don't like it. It's not something that I like. It's not something I think should happen. You cannot judge off of the year unless there was a complete ineptness. Like you failed in coaching, like Nathaniel Hackett. Like a Nathaniel Hackett where you had to bring in people to teach you how to do your job. That's different. Okay, let me be clear. I am not talking about stuff like that. Frank Reich is a good enough coach. You were the worst pick. I know I mentioned this last night. You were the worst team last year. You had the number 1 pick for a reason. You got rid of your best receiver. You've got a good defensive player that for whatever reason you held on to instead of trading. But, like, who else you got? Nobody. So the reality of it was, it's going to be another rocky year. Peyton Manning's first year went 3-13. That's why we got Andrew James. That's why we got Edge. Excuse me. People forget. Number one quarterbacks don't automatically win all the time. And everybody's going to point to, look at what Stroud's doing. Yeah, look at what Stroud's doing. I said with Lovie Smith, that team plays tough. I said a couple years ago with Lovie Smith, I said, there is something about this team. Lovie Smith was brought in, given that contract, to basically do what Jeff Saturday did with the Colts last year. Bring the culture back together. Slow everything down, funnel it back in, and then they replaced Lovie Smith, and it was all about just settling everything down. Get us to where we're not in the middle of a storm. Then you bring in somebody like a DeMeco Ryans, fan favorite, fan loved, successful defensive coordinator with San Francisco. Took a big swing because they still, get this, remember the Watson trade had future picks involved. They have Cleveland's first round pick this year. So Houston uses their other first round pick, traded it to get Willie Anderson, which I thought was a really good move, CJ Stroud, offensive anchor, defensive anchor. They still have a first round pick this year. They didn't lose a pick. And to me, the Texans are set up rather nicely to continue improving. They got to improve the line. That's where I think they got to go. They've got Noah Brown. They've got Tank Dell. They've got the weapons. They've got Stroud. Devin Singletary is serviceable as the running back. You got Pierce. You know, you can do a couple different things. You need the offensive line now. But not a lot of first-round picks can come in and just win when you're coming into the legitimate worst team there is. The Texans had a killer draft. And look what happens. If you hit on 5 of 7 draft picks, you can change your team's fortune pretty quick. So, I don't believe Frank Reich should have been fired for those reasons, but he was. Getting back on point. What are other positions? Let's run through this quickly here. I believe flat out Washington, Ron Rivera will be fired, or he's going to resign to avoid termination. One of the two. Ron Rivera is done in Washington. Believe it 100%. Number 2, I do believe Bill Belichick is done in New England. And no, I don't think it's going to take a bunch of people to replace him. And here's why. Because I don't know how many people are actually going to want to go take over New England. I actually think Robert Kraft is going to find it harder to get somebody to come in. And the narrative is going to be, you're replacing a legend. Yeah, you're replacing a legend. So what? Kyle Shanahan ended up being the San Francisco 49er head coach that has gotten all the success and consistency years after Bill Walsh. Steve Mariucci was a very good 49er head coach. Jim Harbaugh, very good 49er head coach. Yeah, Bill Walsh was fantastic. But guys move on. Bill Parcells, great coach of the Giants. So was Tom Coughlin. Like, it's not one-sided. You don't need to be afraid of replacing Bill Belichick, especially since you will know. If you're an offensive guy and if you've been around the league, you know Bill Belichick is only respected on one side of the ball, defense. He's not respected on offense. So much stuff has come out. So many people don't respect how he handles things, how he talks to people. That's okay. But the reality is, if you're a guy that's coming in going, yeah, he was a great coach, legendary coach, and you're going to need somebody that goes, but this is my team now. And we're going to change the culture around here. Yeah, you may want to, because right now you don't have one. So I think Belichick gets fired from New England, Ron Rivera from Washington. There's two. I believe Matt Eberflus needs to be fired from Chicago. You could waste 2 first-round picks. You could waste 2 first-round picks keeping Matt Eberflus in Chicago. If Chicago's smart, they release Eberflus, and you got to get an offensive coach. Justin Fields could be a quarterback that's serviceable enough to win you games. You could do it. Or you draft a new quarterback. Either way, Eberflus failed with Fields. Don't give him a chance to ruin another one. So there's 6. The one I'm watching close, like I said, I don't like 1 years. I don't. The one that I am watching close, though, is Arizona. I said this last year after everything was done. I said Arizona's hire bothers me because it looks like the move where all you're trying to do is take the defensive coordinator from the Super Bowl appearance, weaken them, not really strengthen you, just weaken them, get a cheap guy that can play, that can coach, and I think they can move off of him really easily. They'll wipe their hands. A year of making money because they didn't pay him a ton, paying off the buyout that they had for Cliff Kingsbury. I'm watching Arizona close. My gut tells me they're going to fire Gannon. That's what my gut tells me. All right, then the final 2. I thought there could be more. There still may. But the final 2 that I'm watching are Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay, which I think his seat is medium right now. They're going to need a new quarterback. I don't know which route they're going to go. I like their running back, Rachaad White. I love, obviously Mike Evans, Cade Otton, but they're getting older. Goodwin hasn't been used a lot. It's okay. Their defense isn't bad. They can, kind of start building it up from the 3rd and 4th round picks. It's a solid team. But is Todd Bowles the guy to build this up? He's consistently gotten worse without Brady. Or even with Brady. He got worse with Brady. And not having Brady, he's even worse. He wasn't great with the Jets. Look out for Todd Bowles to potentially be fired. And then the other one that is really picking up a lot of steam is Dennis Allen. Especially if they miss the playoffs and Atlanta or Tampa Bay get in under 500. New Orleans Saints never expect to be under 500. And they especially don't expect to miss the postseason by not winning the division, and the division winner is under 500, which is a very big reality right now. Tampa Bay, Atlanta could easily both be under 500 and win the division very easily. So there's really not much of a shock factor to it. Just the reality. Okay? So that's what I'm looking at. 9 coaches potentially. I'm looking at a solid 6 or 7 guaranteed positions being open. maybe 9. I said it in one of the previous interviews. For those who are on Spotify, go to my YouTube, Football Talk with Hawk. I've got all the previous podcasts available on there. And some of my stuff, even that I did last year before I had some stuff happen and had to take a break. So here's where we're at now with 9 potential open slots in the NFL. Okay, let's get to the picks. Here we go. Hawks pick 6. So this is how it works. I'm going to pick all 3 aspects of it. Okay, I'm going to pick the winner, obviously. We're going to pick the spread, yes, and then we're even going to look at the over-under. So I've got the 6 games. One of them is automatically the Colts game, as I said. So here we go. The Colts game. Pittsburgh is an underdog at a point and a hook. What this is telling you is Las Vegas believes the Steelers are better by 1.5. That's what this is telling you. They're telling you this is basically even. The home team gets 3 points automatically, and they took 1.5 away. TJ Watt clears protocol. Okay? To me, that's the difference maker. TJ Watt is playing. It's in a dome. Saturday afternoon. Both offenses will struggle. And both defenses will probably have a good day. So picking the spread and the winner, I'm sorry. I was going Colts all week. I was, and then TJ Watt cleared protocol today. The number on the game changed. And honestly, so did my pick. I got the Steelers winning the game. The over-under is 42.5. I'm honestly going under. I think this is going to be a 19-17 type game. I don't see either team being able to score 3 touchdowns on offense. Could have a defensive touchdown. That could flip the over-under. But if you're asking me just offense, I'm saying no. Not a chance. All right, the next game we're going to pick, Detroit and Denver. This game, Saturday night, I'm looking forward to. Why is this? Because it's Detroit's test. They've laid a couple of eggs recently. Their defense lets teams back into games. This game scares a lot of Lions fans only because of their defense. Las Vegas wasn't deterred, though. It's a 4.5-point favorite for the Lions. And the over-under is 47.5. So I'm picking the Lions to win. But this game screams field goal or field goal switch type game. This game screams 31-27, 34-31, 30-27, 30-28. This game screams that type of ending. In a dome, the Bronco defense is fast, so they're going to be able to keep up. They're not as big, so I think Detroit can run the ball. And their secondary is horrible, so I think Russell Wilson will hit a couple of throws. So I'm going to go Detroit wins But I'm taking the Broncos to cover the 4.5. The game is going to be close. I believe it's going to be tight. And then the over-under at 47.5. Honestly, I'm going over. I'm going over because at 27-24, I'm over. At 28-24, I'm over. Okay, there's very few setups. I mean, both teams would have to score. I mean, 24-21. Okay, I'm under. I think there's going to be more field goals than that. I think that's the type of game that's going to be played. All right, we got 4 more, and I got a couple of surprises for you guys. Couple of surprises. All right, these next 2 are my favorites. The next 2 are my favorite. Giants at the New Orleans Saints, minus 5.5, or sorry, plus 5.5. Over under is currently 39.5. Low scoring game seems correct, but the Giants with Brian Dable, Tommy DeVito in a dome, little bit of speed. Wan'Dale Robinson and DeVito are starting to kind of get a rhythm. DeVito is not being wild. Jameis Winston is probably going to be starting, but who's he going to throw the ball to? If Shaheed is healthy, I could see Shaheed having a bigger day because I think I think Jameis Winston's just going to want to launch the ball down the field. I really think that's what's going to happen. But I think the Giants have a little bit of swagger. And the Giants control their own destiny. They really do. Because they play the Saints, they play the Rams, they play Philadelphia twice. They can still get there. They can still get there and make the playoffs. They are mathematically alive, and they already beat the Packers. They've got the tiebreak over the Packers. They got the tiebreak over the Seahawks. Right? No, the Seahawks have the tiebreak over them. The Seahawks have the tiebreak over them. My fault. But they've got the tiebreak over the Packers. They could do it. They could do it. So, my pick for the Giants and Saints, Giants, 5.5-point underdogs. I'm taking the Giants. And honestly, I'm taking the money line. I think the Giants pull the upset. I love the Giants. I think the Saints are reeling. There's a lot of disbelief in that building with the Saints. Their offense is getting booed off the field. Hill is injured. Kamara's okay. Thomas is on IR. Olave's injured. Shaheed's injured. The Giants are believing, and the Giants are playing hard. Yeah, they just played Monday Night Football. Don't worry about it. Dable will have them ready. Really, the same game plan that they used against the Packers will work against the Saints. Shouldn't have to change it up much. Should be able to do the exact same thing. And honestly, I think they can go down to the Big Easy and go on a 4-game winning streak now. I'm going to pick the Giants outright over the Saints. And because we kind of have to, we're going to go with the over on the points. A 20-20 game, 21-20 game is over. So 24-21 is over. That's what we're going with. We're going with the over. All right, the other game, here we go. The fourth game. Jets at the Dolphins. Now, this game, I am going to say that Mike McDaniel, after watching how Kyle Shanahan protected and used Deebo Samuel, is smart in how he handles Tyreek Hill. The Dolphins' schedule after this week is Cowboys, Ravens, Bills. Okay? They're not going to want to have Hill on the sideline for those 3 games. They need Hill. And let's be honest and fair, they should beat the Jets at home without Tyreek Hill. But an 8.5-point spread without Tyreek Hill, I don't think so. I don't think so. If it's at 8.5, take it. Take the Jets to cover the spread against a Dolphin team without Tyreek Hill. They're not great. They're not going to be. The Jets can get some pressure on Tua, make them uncomfortable. Sauce Gardner can shut down Jalen Waddle and play a 10-man defense behind him. I'm going Jets to cover the spread, Dolphins to win. The points are at 36.5. I kind of like that number. I'm going to say over. 21-17 is over. It's 38. It's 36.5 is what the points are. So I'm going to say over. Dolphins win. Jets cover. All right, here we go. Couple more. Washington at the LA Rams. Reality check is the Rams are going to blow them out. I think you take the Rams to cover the spread against Washington. The over-under is 50.5. Take the over. The Rams go once again. Their offense is there. They're healthy. Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp is always going to be injured now. But you got Nacua. You got Tutu Atwell. You got Kyron Williams. You got a healthy Stafford. Kupp is at least on the field. Washington can't cover anybody. They're reeling. Nobody knows if they even believe they can play football anymore. And I'm saying the Rams absolutely blow them out. It's a big game for the Rams at home again. Their playoff hopes are sitting there. Their playoff hopes are just as alive as anybody else's in the NFC right now. They got to win to keep it there. I'm taking the Rams. Take the points of 6.5. Take the over at 50.5. Rams to outright win and blow the doors off of them. All right. Now my favorite game of the week. The game I've been waiting for. Dallas Cowboys at Buffalo Bills. Vegas is really leaning into them Cowboys. It is a 1.5-point favorite Buffalo at home in the weather and the wind against a Texas team. Las Vegas isn't putting everything together. Dallas is a bad road team. Dallas is not the same on the road as they are at home. They're not going to cover this. They're not going to win. The Bills are going to be fighting for everything they have. The Bills will know what happened with the Miami and Jet game. They know they can still win the division. They control all of it at this point because if they can win out, and they know the Cowboys, Ravens can both knock off Miami, they can win the division, get into the playoffs in the third or fourth slot, or still second. If Kansas City somehow loses again, and I don't know how, especially looking at their schedule, I don't know how, But if they lose again, the Bills have the head-to-head and could technically still get second place again in the AFC. But I am taking Buffalo. Take them to cover. The over-under is at 50. I am absolutely taking the over. 31-20 is my pick. It's not popular, and I know that. But I think after a gritty win where they're not getting credit, think about this. You won the game over one of your biggest rivals, the Chiefs, the team that stopped you from making the Super Bowl. You beat them, and you're not getting any credit for it. Huh? You beat them, and you're not getting any credit for it? Are you kidding me? That's how the Bills feel right now. They're sitting there, and they got a chip on their shoulder because they won, but all anybody's talking about is, should the penalty been called? Did the penalty really need to be thrown there? Was that flag worth it? Not. Hey, Buffalo won. Just saying. Buffalo won. They did their job. Penalties go both ways all game. It's exaggerated in the fourth quarter, sure. But penalties go both ways all game. That penalty wiped out a play that was really risky by Kelsey, because if that ball gets tipped into the air by the Buffalo defender that's in front of him, FYI, then we're all asking, what type of a bonehead move was Kelsey making with over a minute on the clock when you are down there now? Down there automatically in field goal range. We praise people for some things that end up working out, when the reality is, as a coach, none of the coaches liked what he did. None of the coaches liked the idea of him throwing the ball laterally backwards over Bill defenders when he was already sitting down there around the 20 to be able to kick a field goal and still have a legitimate shot at winning the game. Just the reality, guys. So my pick this week is the Bills come out, chip on their shoulder. They win the game. They beat up on Dallas. And precursor to next week, Dallas then beats up on Miami next week, even with Tyreek Hill, because they have the secondary to be able to play with Miami and the defensive line that will put Tua in a lot of trouble. So there's your cheat for next week's picks that I'll be doing. But nonetheless, there you go, guys. Hawks pick 6. This week I got Buffalo covering and taking the over Dallas at home. Then I got the Rams taking 100% the points. 6.5, not enough. It should be 10. Taking the points, beating the Commanders at home over the 50.5. Then I got the Jets covering the spread against the Dolphins. They're going to cover the 8.5. And I got this game going as the over, because the over is only 36.5. So I think, honestly, I mean, if you're 2017, it's over. 21-17, it's over. So I'm going over. Dolphins win. Jets cover, though. Then I got the Giants to upset completely. Giants to completely upset the Saints, and over 39.5. Then I got Detroit winning, but Denver covering the 4.5-point spread as the underdog, and I got the points being over 47.5. Pittsburgh and Indianapolis is a 1.5 point. Steelers are the dog, but I'm picking them to win outright, and I'm going under 42.5. I don't see how either team's going to score more than 2 touchdowns and a field goal. I really don't see how either team's going to score more than 3 touchdowns. Legitimately, a 20-17 game to me is very likely. But I got Pittsburgh winning it tomorrow afternoon. Guys, I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sure we're going to have more to talk about next week, and maybe another coach is going to get fired. I don't know. If Washington gets embarrassed, do they fire Ron Rivera? Who knows, guys? It's going to be an interesting week. The matchups are intriguing, but they also mean a lot because these final 3 weeks, you're going to find out, have a lot of potential. It's playoff jockeying matchups, playoff indicating matchups, and we'll go over that next week. Have a fantastic day of football today. Enjoy the games, and I will see you guys on Tuesday after what I hope will be an epic weekend of football. Until Tuesday, guys, this is Blackhawk signing off. Have a great weekend. Hawk out.